following is a paid program. Advice and opinions expressed on the program are solely that of American Bank, not necessarily WBV or Good Karma Brands. Welcome in, everybody, to Taking Care of Business. Today we are featuring a local business that we haven't had on the show here before, but they are kind of a critical, crucial, central part of what happens here in the area, and not necessarily something you would think of as local when you think of local businesses, but incredibly local in what you guys do. I'd like to introduce two reps coming in from American Bank here in Beaver Dam. We've got Senior Vice President Jamie Henning with us today, and we have Marketing Manager Alyssa Gilmore. How are you guys doing today?
Good. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you.
Doing very, very well myself, and I'm glad to have you guys on the show. I knew I was having American Bank on. I didn't know I was going to get J Money with us, the legendary J Money, for those of you who listen to the morning show. Glad to have you both on. But we're not here to talk about J Money's great contributions to the morning show.
Will there be trivia today?
I didn't set up trivia. I didn't think maybe we'd have to get to know you questions, but you guys are actually here to talk about some pretty important stuff, because obviously when we think of banking, oftentimes we think of banking as being this big, overwhelming, thing where we're just numbers, and it's just a bunch of faceless people there who rotate in and out. You never see the same tellers twice. You never deal with the same, loan officers twice, mortgage officers, any of that. But you guys really strive to be different. And part of that is the fact that you guys have been around for a really long time.
Correct.
Yeah, we started in 1891, downtown Beaver Dam, world headquarters of American National Bank. Now it's American Bank. And through the years, we've seen tremendous changes in banking. But I think the one thing that holds true is the personal touch, the smile and greet your customers, do the little things. I preach to my tellers all the time. It's the little things that make the big difference to our customers. And I think that's why we have a loyal following out there through the years.
And have you guys been in the same building the entire time?
Yes. So we have pictures in our basement that what you see now in our facade was 5 different storefronts back in the day. But through consolidation, and again, we sold off our loan center a couple of years ago when we remodeled through the pandemics. We're a little bit smaller footprint, but yeah, we have some pictures downstairs with the bars up, the historical, and yeah, so a lot of history.
Yeah, and I think it also kind of saying how we've had this loyal following. Our most recent renovation was done during COVID when our branches were closed, and still to this day we get customers, I haven't been in here forever, just because they've been customers with us forever. They haven't had to do their banking in person, and all of a sudden it's been 5 years and we're changed, but we're still exactly who we are.
Let me touch on that real briefly. So how does American Bank deal with the fact that a lot of banking has gone digital, where getting people in the doors is harder, tougher?
Well, and the other thing that I can hearken back to early in my career is the traditional, you get paid by check on a Friday, and we'd have 8 tellers and lines out the door. So fast forward to today when everything is direct deposit, we have 2 tellers, much like our location at Walmart, but they're actually busier than they were back in the day, but now it's all electronic. I got locked out of internet banking, this or that, password resets. So a lot more digital stuff. And again, quick story if I can.
Yeah.
Back in 1999, back in the Wayback Machine, our management said, we need to create a website. And we were like, what? What do we need a website for? Now, think about the time frame.
Right.
So fast forward a little bit, we won a national award for our website. And fast forward to today, mobile banking, mobile deposited checks, it's the new norm.
Right.
And I look at my kids as an example. They don't necessarily need to know how to balance a checkbook because they have instant access to their daily balances and what they're spending and stuff. So much has changed, but I think at the heart of it, we're still your local bank, that we take care of you. We do the little things for you.
Now, as a local bank, that means you guys aren't just working locally and servicing local residents, but you guys also invest back into the local community, right?
Correct. Yes, that actually is a big part of my job. As a marketing manager, I work with a lot of our donations, charitable giving throughout the community. That's really a big part of what we do. We like to give back to both for-profit and nonprofit businesses in our communities because those are the ones that are affecting everybody that lives here. One of the big ones we are a big part of is the Dodge County Toy Bank. For those of you that don't know, the Dodge County Toy Bank just celebrated its 60th year this past Christmas. Over 20 of those years, their home has been at in the basement of our American Bank Front Street office. So come Christmas time, that basement is filled with toys. We have all of our volunteers come in and shop for the kids who might not otherwise receive Christmas presents. So, I mean, that's just one thing we're really involved in. We also do things like the Dodge County Teacher of the Month program, which we're involved in. Every month we get to choose different teachers who live in Dodge County and work there and then award them for their outstanding teaching efforts. We help kind of give back to them by giving them a check to give back to their classroom supplies. We also usually donate a lot of financial literacy things as well because that's really important for our communities. There seems to be a big gap with financial literacy, so kind of helping the schools out where we can with that is really important to us as well.
And that ties kind of back into what you were saying because, you know, even myself, I remember checkbook, you sat down, I'd watch my parents do it every month, once a month, sit down, you balance your finances out, and you had to have a really good understanding of your finances, whereas now it's really easy to just open up your phone and be like, oh, I've got plenty of money and spend, and not realize some things take a while to clear, you know, some things are auto-pulling, you know, you got bills coming up at the end of the month or whatever you got to focus on. And so having that ready access to technology and ready access to view our finances, I think in many ways kind of separates us from understanding how real money can be.
Right. And kind of going back to what Jamie said of how we're busier than ever, but it's a lot less tellers. It's all that personal banking we've been getting so busy with. Like the fraud, that's such a huge thing that we deal with that we're the first people that they turn to because they trust us to help them. So yeah, that takes a lot more time than us just depositing your check and taking out $100 for the week.
Makes a lot of sense.
Right, and dovetailing on that, the fraud that we see on a daily basis is crazy. You wouldn't even believe, you know, I need to wire money to Sudan. Really? What's this? Oh, it's all good.
It's my friend.
Yeah, and we just had a customer this morning that we suspected large cash withdrawals that they can't explain. Like, just all about. But it's a world we live in, and it's out there.
Right.
And if the fraudsters didn't make money, they wouldn't be at it. So there we go. Going back to the toy bank for just a minute. So any of you that have been at our downtown branch and you know how big it is, it's gotten a little bit smaller with the renovation. Picture that same size, one story below, at Christmas time, with many, many volunteers shopping for many, many local families. It's a tremendously large, bustling toy bank.
Santa's Workshop, some might call it.
Santa's Workshop. It's crazy. But so we've hosted that for a little over 20 years. It goes back 60 years. But it's a tremendous local benefit that we can help, a lot of volunteers help provide Christmas presents for many, many local families. So good thing.
I imagine that has to be, as a lover of toys, if you've seen my office, you'll know. I have to imagine that's quite a sight to see.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's hard not to feel like a kid when you see stuff
Right.
like that, right? I want to talk a little bit about size is my thing here. When I think banking, a lot of people think, well, I need to have a big bank because they've got the borrowing power. They've got the resources. If I travel, I'll have a location I can go to. Everybody's concerned about, I want, ATMs I'm not going to pay huge fees at, or, all these other things. And they feel like those are all features and things that only come with a big bank. So if somebody's trying to compare American Bank and say small to big, where are the benefits here?
Well,
How do you guys compete?
one thing with technology, obviously with a debit card or ATMs, we have had many customers that move out of Beaver Dam but still bank with us because you don't need to bank locally per se. because we are their local bank and they like us for who we are. And we're not here to bash the big banks. They're who they are, but I think we provide a little bit different personal touch. I can think back to one story. Here's another story, right?
Yeah, go for it.
This goes back probably 5 to 10 years. Longtime customer called late on a Friday. Just had back surgery, but needed to cash a check to pay his employee. I said, well, where do you live? I live da-da-da-da. I'll make this happen. Got in the car, drove over, took care of his needs. Done. 10 minutes. And that's another quick story about it's the little things that make the big difference for the customers. It was 10 minutes of my time, big deal. I took care of his problem. He paid his employee. But that's just, and that's not an everyday thing, obviously.
Right.
But it's just indicative of like who we are as a bank. We're going to take care of you. We're going to resolve the problem. We're going to do what's right for our customers.
Right. We offer all the same things, your checking, your savings accounts, IRAs, 401k, your loans, whatever it might be that the big banks also offer. But then, yeah, we just have that personalized touch. I think a lot of days everybody's got a guy for something. You got your oil change guy, you got your lawn guy, whoever it might be. And that's kind of who we strive to be, is your banker guy, so to speak.
I like that. Now, we talked about how long you guys have been in the community. Let's talk a little bit about the team you guys got there. I know back in the day, I'm not going to say the name of the bank, but I banked with a very large bank known across the country. Their logo might have horses in a carriage. And I lived in one location for 5 years, and every time I went into my local bank, which was just on the street, if I saw the same face twice, it was a miracle. Mm-hmm. Constant rollover, constant churn of people. Sometimes it was, oh yeah, they're here, but now we send them to a different location, whatever. What about your guys' team? Do you guys have a core team?
We have a long tenured staff. Myself, I've only been there for 32 years, and sometimes I think I'm the newbie because we have employees over 40 years tenure. And that speaks to who we are as an employer, too. They take care of us. If you got family needs, whatever, they take care of us. But that also speaks to what we do for our customers in the local economy, local service clubs. Again, I'm a member of Kiwanis. So yeah, it's
Right, going back to how you were saying you go into the bank office and it's a new face every time. We have customers who will strictly go to an office just so they can get their favorite teller, who that is. And I think that also speaks a lot to who we are and the people that we have here helping. Even just this morning, I was talking to our IT girl, and she just got a call from a customer the other day. Nothing bank related, just her printer was jammed and she needed help with that. So who does she trust? Her IT person who helps at the bank. And so our IT girl's like, yeah, sure, I'll help you. Like that's her world. So it goes past the banking, I should say.
Mm-hmm. I will say one thing that stands out to me about your guys' bank that is kind of an immediate thought that makes me go, this seems very odd. But at the same time, for a local bank, maybe it's perfectly normal for you guys. When I think of a big bank, they might have a branch in Sun Prairie, and it's the closest one. And so if you live in Beaver Dam, well, you're driving there if you got to go in. Mm-hmm. Then I think about here in Beaver Dam with you guys, you've got the main branch. Then you got one just down the road from here. You got one in the Walmart. Mm-hmm. 3 locations for a small town bank. Does that actually benefit you guys?
I say yes, it does. We definitely see that our north side branch is our most heavily trafficked, which is the one kind of right in the center of town, so we're hitting everybody. But I mean, our Walmart branch is the biggest convenience for people. They're the shopping and then going to deposit your check right away, killing 2 birds with one stone. We definitely see is important. It was bigger, I think, back before all the online shopping and kind of stuff, when you used to have to go and actually buy your groceries and not get them delivered. But yeah, we definitely see a benefit.
That's awesome. And I will say, though, I still like the downtown office, my favorite. Mm-hmm. Walking in there, the big vault doors and everything. Like, that's something to be, I'm a photographer by training, went to school for it. And when I see that, I think that's picturesque. That's what I want to see. It looks secure. It feels secure. You know, it doesn't feel like I just walked into a dental office that, you know, 2 weeks ago was a chiropractor and now it's a bank.
Right.
Absolutely.
That is
Yeah,
a great
and
feel.
the vault door definitely catches people when they walk in.
Now, do you guys close that at the end of the night, or does that stay open all the time? Is that
It gets
usable?
closed. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. It's a functioning door.
That's kind of
And
cool.
it actually has, we wind old-fashioned clocks within the door. So if it closes on a Friday, it will not open until Monday. So unlike that one Barney Fife episode where they, you know what I'm
Right.
talking about. Yeah, very historic.
Yeah.
That is really cool. Really, really cool. I could probably ask questions about that all day, but we'll move on to some other stuff. We talked about community impact, and obviously, a small town bank can have a lot of impact on the growth of a city. And so I guess my question to you is, what kind of an impact are you guys seeing? How are you guys at assisting the city with growing? What is your involvement there?
I think a lot of it goes back to our charitable giving and our donation efforts. We really, really pride ourselves in giving back to the community. I mean, externally, I've kind of mentioned the programs we've done, Dodge County Teacher of the Month. Internally, we do Employee Denim Days every other Friday. So we get our employees together, they pick a charity for the month, and if they want to wear jeans that day, they bring in a donation, and then all those donations go to that specific organization. And it's a little morale booster because a Friday Jean Day for our employees, but then also giving back to those organizations that are right here in our community that everybody does benefit from. I think also we started internally our charitable giving efforts. So we have employees who can decide how much to take out of every paycheck, and then quarterly we award that to those bigger organizations that really do touch everybody in the community. So I think that's a big part of what we do.
And another thing we've done through the years along the lines of financial literacy is going into the schools. I know your station is out at the career fair, but they also have a day for juniors every year, which the name is escaping me, but basically a junior gets set with a job and income, and they have to work their way through life. And we would be the banker in the operation, and just open their eyes relative to, when you get out of school and you have your big boy job, you have to pay your bills, you have to get insurance, you have to do all these things. So we've participated with that a lot through the years too, to help educate our youth on financial literacy.
Now, earlier you had mentioned that you yourself, J Money, you do work with the Kiwanis. Is that working with these organizations, volunteering with these organizations, something that is kind of encouraged at American Bank for your team, or is that just J Money being J Money?
Well, I go back to the days when every officer of every bank was in an organization. In the world we live in, it's just not so much today. However, our bank really supports my efforts in volunteering for Kiwanis and the fundraising and giving out of funds and all of that stuff. So it's still a vital part of a community bank to be involved with different organizations. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree. And they just make it, everybody at the bank is so supportive. So once you hear about some of these organizations, you just automatically get curious and want to help out and see what they're about. So, I mean, that's how I got involved in what I'm involved with. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Let's deep dive a little bit more into what kind of things American Bank offers to the community. Because when you think of a bank, you kind of think of typical things like you got your checking, your savings, loans, whatever. Obviously, you guys offer those up as well. Is there any difference in what you guys can offer compared to, I hate to use the term mega banks, but the big mega banks?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to all our personal service. Really just having that personal touch on everything. Making sure our customers are greeted with a smile. Those little things that actually end up making a difference. I know Jamie's really good about that and some of the stories he's told. But at the end of the day, I think that's really what it comes down to.
And again, as a small bank, to be able to provide the technology that we have is kind of mind-blowing to me, because we don't have a lot of resources to put to those projects, but we still can offer the same services as the bigger banks. So whether it's, banking on your phone, making mobile deposits, Again, another story that I think is a hoot is, so back in the day, when you write out a check, you get your checks back with your statements.
Right. That's how you balance your checkbook.
That's
right?
the way it was. So many years ago, when we decided we're going to get a little bit more modern, and the term is truncate, meaning a check turns into an electronic transaction, we literally had to rent a local restaurant, invite hundreds of customers to come in and explain, you're not going to get your checks back anymore. And it was like, what? and it's archaic to think about, but that's the way it was. You get your, and back in the day, employees, there was 2, 3, 4 employees. All they did every day is to sort checks and put them in an envelope.
Right.
But that's the way it was. But with technology, again, it seems archaic, but times change.
Right.
And who would figure that you could pick up your phone and do any kind of banking or anything really?
Right. I mean, that is really cool. And again, it adds to the personal touch of things. I know a lot of these big banks, they simply would have sent a letter out in the mail.
Right.
And you would have got it. Or
Right.
the next time you got your statement, there'd be a little thing in the fine print at the bottom that says, no, you're no longer going to be getting copies of your checks
Right.
back or whatever.
Yep.
So that's really cool to know as well.
And I think that's something we do pretty well is every time there are these little changes that might seem little to us on our banking side, but are a lot bigger to the customers, we do really try to communicate that. We don't just add that as the one-liner on the statement. We do put those communications out to helpfully alleviate some of those fears of the change.
Yeah, communication is critical. You can say anything to anybody. If it comes out the right way, it'll all be good. But I just hate listening to pat answers. We don't do this. We don't, we can't do that.
Right.
Explain yourself. What do you mean you can't? If there's a reason, explain it. But so again, we've been, I think, in my respect, good about that through the years as things change, to communicate what's going on, why it's going on, and into the modern banking world we live in.
Well, let's tie that back into something you guys talked a little bit about before. When you were mentioning, people come in and they might be performing some activities that make you think there could be fraud happening. Mm-hmm. I know from having friends and family who work in the banking industry in larger banks that oftentimes if they suspect fraud, it's kind of a, are you sure you want to do this transaction? Here's a pamphlet just so you have the information. And that's the extent they'll go because I don't want to start a conversation. Conversations are awkward. Conversations are hard. And I've done my part by giving them the information. If they read it, they read it. If they don't, they don't. It sounds like you guys are maybe a little more personable. How do you guys handle if somebody comes in, without giving too many specifics?
It's not easy because, I can think of a couple different profiles of people this falls into. The one, I can think back years ago, I had a customer that would come to me, I got to talk to you. I just won $1 million, but I got to pay them. Like, no, this is what's going on. They want to believe it. They want to believe they won the lottery. Or, my mom who lives over in Columbus has gotten the grandson call a few times. This is your grandson, Kyle, and don't tell Dad, but I'm in trouble. I need $4,000. And unfortunately, at her age, she's 85 years old, they want to believe it. Because back in the day, you could believe people, but not in the world we live in. So there's all different types of scams. And we find that it's our job to try to weed through a transaction that certainly looks fishy, but to the customer, it's totally legit. But if we can prevent a fraud and loss of money, at the end of the day, it's a good thing. Right. It's just absolutely uncomfortable to have this conversation because you're, talking to this person, what are you doing? But you can't say it that way.
Well, you guys see it way more often than the individual would.
Every single day. Our accounting department could tell stories about the frauds that are out there. And
you don't want to ever invalidate the customer's feelings while they're going through it. But since we are so trained to see those red flags, it's uncomfortable telling them. But once you kind of start getting the point across to them, it's like, oh my gosh, like it really opens their eyes and they can see that. But I think another great thing that we do is our customers do trust us. So even if they are feeling a little skeptical about something, they'll just come to us before they even try and act on it, which is the ultimate goal, is what we want them to do. Because we're a lot better to tell them, yes, this is fraud, and we're not 100% sure, but it's most likely fraud, or no, this is okay. And I think that goes a long way with
And
our
on
customers.
our side of the table, there's definitely some satisfaction when you can avoid something that you know is not right and your customer is not harmed.
Right. And I imagine then it saves you guys a bit of work later having to deal with, the repercussions of fraud.
The closing the accounts, the creating the new
Yep.
ones, because everything's been compromised. Yeah, definitely. So I think our staff's pretty good at recognizing those red flags and kind of nicely communicating it to our customers.
So I do want to take a moment now to remind everybody again, this is a paid program. The advice and opinions expressed on the program are solely that of American Bank, not necessarily WBEV or Good Karma Brands. Let's shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about what makes a small bank run so well. I know a lot of times when it comes to a big bank, I call this person, I get forwarded to this person, then they send me to somebody else, then we'll get back to you in, 48 to 38 weeks. You never know when it's going to be. And then when they finally get back to you, the answer you get may not even be the answer to the question you were trying to ask.
Right.
Or when banks are looking to make things happen, make changes, make decisions, it seems like it takes an act of Congress for them to make a decision that actually benefits the consumer.
And one thing I'll say as a longtime person or employee of American Bank, I've fulfilled many roles through the years. At one point, I was the IT person. Now I can barely log in, right? I was the marketing person at one point. Tongue in cheek, I'm the custodian when something needs to be fixed that's
yes.
broken. But you do what you got to do, but it also lends itself to, if you got a customer with a problem, you walk over to the next desk and say, call this person and fix their problem. Where it's not transfer to extension 608, leave a message, and wait your 42 weeks that you just sent. So, it's being small is good in a sense that we can be a lot more hands-on with our people, with our customers, and really get a solution to their problem, because at the end of the day, that's what they want. And we'll figure out what happened later, but let's get it solved.
Now, does that happen at every level? Like, if a teller needs assistance, they just go to another teller, or can a teller go talk to one of the personal bankers, or talk to one of the, the senior VPs or the marketing manager if it's something that relates to what you guys do?
Yeah, it's really every level. That's kind of just reiterating what Jamie said. The smaller focus, it helps it because we are able to prioritize the things. If someone comes in with this huge fraud case and they're about to lose their whole life savings, yes, we can prioritize that over the check deposit that has to happen next door kind of thing. I would say so.
Awesome. That's good to hear. I like efficiency. It doesn't always happen, but I do like efficiency. I want to touch on something you talked about before where you had mentioned trust. Obviously, if you see the same faces every day, you talk to, well, I shouldn't say every day, but every time you go in to cash a check or get a money order or, deposit some money, whatever the case may be, you see those same faces. See the same people for everything you're doing, years and years and years. Maybe you've banked with them, now your kids are banking with them, your grandkids are banking there, whatever the case may be. 1891 could be your great-grandkids, banking there. You get that trust, you get that longevity. How do you convince people to utilize that trust and help them understand why it's better for them to invest their dollars, save their money here, get their loans here, do all that here, as opposed to someplace else?
I think one thing early in my career that I still remember this phrase being said, people don't care what you know. They want to know that you care. And with that lies a lot of power and trust that you're going to do right by this person and they're going to remember it. And again, I tell them blue in the face about the little things we do for our customers that may take 5 or 10 minutes, but they say, wow, you really do that for me? And as a financial advisor in my main role at the bank, when the pandemic hit, it was like, this is crazy. I can't sit face to face with my customer. It's got to be phone upstairs in this, upstairs in this room. But since the pandemic hit, I find myself out and about. There's some customers that think, Jamie doesn't work there because he's never in his office. Well, it doesn't mean I'm not working. I'm out seeing people. because they have needs, whether it's the senior crowd or this or that, or and again, that carries itself to the heart of what a community bank is, that we're going to do what's right for you, even if it doesn't make corporate financial sense, but people remember that. And that's why we have, for the most part, a very loyal following, because people know we'll take care of them and do the right thing and fix their problems.
Save their, invested in markets or whatever, the products that they get from you guys. How do you guys utilize that money to improve things or do things?
Well, at the heart of things, if you think about what a bank does, is we bring in deposits, pay interest, and lend it out, whether it's a mortgage, auto loan, or whatnot. So therein lies helping, the local economy, local businesses, local, home buyers. That at the heart of it, that's what a bank is in a sense. But there's a lot of impact to local businesses and individuals in that respect. I want to have my dream house. The bank can help you do that.
And we do follow things like our community reinvestment and things like that. So basically that is making sure we are reinvesting into the communities, getting people in our community who need those homes before maybe we go out and target other communities that aren't as right here to us.
I think about one investment that comes to mind for me, and I got to cover a lot of it as it was being built. You guys have that nice little area behind the bank. It's kind of a little seating area, relaxation area, very calming, in a space that otherwise might have been seen as just like a back parking lot.
Right.
And it's such a cool area that you guys were able to conceive and put back there. How important are things like that to the image you guys are trying to put out there as a bank?
I think it's very important. Just really reiterates we are here for the community. Spaces like that are meant for the community. It's not just for our customers or employees to use. Really, anybody can come, use those spaces, use those facilities, and just remember we're here.
In fact, Earth Day is coming up.
Yep. It's today, actually. Happy
hello.
Earth Day.
And they had contacted us. Hey, can we use your back little pergola? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
As a central organizing to go do cleanup. So
Yep. So they
absolutely,
do
that's
that
what
every
we're here
year for Earth Day. There's a couple of other organizations that use it as quick meeting spots as well. But yeah, we've used it for all sorts of things, and all those resources and workforce was all sourced locally. So just another way we keep it local.
There you go. I know I myself have found myself over there at times where, like maybe I go downtown for like the homecoming parade or whatever. I pack all my stuff away. Traffic's busy. Everybody's trying to get out of there. And it's like, no, I'm just going to sit here and relax for a minute. It's surprisingly quiet back there and calming. So a nice little area.
Yeah.
I definitely appreciate that.
or on a homecoming parade day when we're bustling, right?
Right. And I mean, it can be, and I'll say this because I've been inside all of the locations that you guys have. And while one of them definitely feels like you're in a grocery store bank, there's a certain look you expect.
Yep.
Your other location feels fairly modern, fairly new bank-ish. And then you got the classic location. But there's this very common theme I notice amongst all of them, which is I see a lot of smiling faces. I see a lot of, as you approach people, eyes are up, they're looking at you. And I feel like that's got to be something you guys not only cultivate, but maybe you look for when you're bringing teammates on board.
Definitely.
We take a lot of pride in that because it's the customer experience, it's what they want, it's what they expect. They're not just a number, and it's not who we are.
Right, and we're not just working at a retail store where you can come in, buy it, leave, whatever. We are working with people's money, their livelihood. So to instill that sense of belonging and trust to the customers is really important.
Made a little for myself because I wanted to ask about this business connection. When I think small town banks, oftentimes I think fairly good for small business because small bank, small business, they kind of meet each other at the same level. But we do have in the Beaver Dam area a lot of fairly large manufacturing, a lot of large business as well. Do you guys work with the large businesses as well? Have you guys found that you're able to integrate with businesses on multiple levels? And how do you make each business still feel important?
Well, even as a small bank, we have, I immediately think on the lending side of things, we have the capabilities of not just going small town or small time, bigger time with manufacturers or this or that. So, yeah, we can make that happen, anything.
Yeah, it's really any level, your little mom and pop shop down the store or the big corporation that's doing an expansion in a couple cities away. We really have been able to assist all those customers at really every level, every life stage, every goal they're trying to achieve. So,
is there any point where somebody comes to you and you go, well, this is too small for us or too big for us? Or do you guys...
I guess not. In my role, I don't experience that as much.
Yeah, not in my role, but I'm sure it can happen. I mean,
Right.
we are a small banks. We have, somewhat limited capabilities there. But I know on the lending side of things, there's, participations, meaning several banks will go into a larger loan. So yeah, that happens too.
And then kind of dovetailing off that on the deposit side, we also, for some of our larger deposit customers, we offer them IntraFi. So basically, if they have more than that FDIC coverage limit, they can still keep all of their money here at American Bank, but then we go into agreements with other banks so that they can still get that coverage of, so something were to happen to a bank, they still will have all their funds protected, but they still also can keep all their money right here at American Bank. So I think that's another way we can really tailor to any size customer.
And we've worked with the city several years now to accept property tax payments. You can go to the bank to make your payment. You don't have to go, by mail or to City Hall. So, and that's a nice service to be able to.
Right. One less stop if you're out and
People
about.
have to go
anyways.
to the bank anyway, so I'm going to make my property tax payment.
Yep.
I like that. Now you mentioned collaborating with other banks. Is this a common strategy for small banks to be able to do, or have you guys been able to cultivate special relationships that way? Are there other banks that you do have relationships with that allow you to do more?
Okay. Talking about the IntraFi that I just mentioned, so that's really a tool I think geared more towards smaller banks. So yeah, you can keep your large depositors there, but then also ensure them that if anything were to happen, we can still have all your funds guaranteed. You still will get those back. And essentially what it is a customer has $250,000 with us, but then let's say they have another $100,000 that don't qualify for the FDIC coverage. We send those to another small bank. They send us the matching funds back, and then we're covering that other customer from that bank, and then that bank is covering our customer. So yeah, we can do things like those smaller agreements to just help out more.
And even on a personal level, I have several friends that work for other banks in town, whether they're the big bank or another local bank, where if an issue comes up, we give them a call. Hey, because we're all bankers at the heart of things. We do things different ways. And there have been a few interactions in my day where a customer comes to our bank and they're doing something nefarious, and then I see them walk up to the bank up the street, hop in my car, drive over and talk to the manager. Hey, what's going on here? And again, it's a local environment, all of us. I mean, there's several banks in Beaver Dam. We're not the only one. We may think we're the best. But anyway, we're all working together for the common good, whether it's, talking about fraud. Every bank has fraud. We just like to tell the story that this isn't a random thing in the world we live in. As sad as it is, it happens every day.
Yep.
Makes a lot of sense. I want to jog things back a little bit and talk about, obviously, your history with American Banks. So we talked about how long you've worked there. You've been with American Bank for how long now?
5 years.
So on the spectrum of things,
Yeah.
apparently you're barely there a day at this point by comparison. You're somewhere in the middle, and you got people that have been there much longer. Why have you chosen to stay as long as you have? The banking industry, lots of locations, lots of things you could do. You could be a marketing manager at any bank, probably. You could be a senior VP and finance manager at any bank. Why is it important for you so far to be here, to stay here? And
I think
continue
for
to
me,
work?
there's two things. One is what we're allowed to do as a small bank. Again, that may not meet a corporate financial sense. Why would you drive over 10 minutes to go see this customer? Because you know what? At the end of the day, they remember those little things. But also, in my respect, I've been there long enough. I personally have a very loyal following. The bank has a very loyal following, and as long as you take care of people, they're going to be there for you. You know, you're not going to do negative things to them. You're going to fix their problems, help them out, and smile and wave, boys. You know, there we go.
Yeah, and I actually started at the bank prime mid-COVID, so it would have been the perfect opportunity just to jump. I mean, everybody was jumping jobs just to see what was the best thing out there at that time. But I just felt really supported by everybody here and did feel the closeness and the localness of the community. And that's really what I was looking for, to work for a smaller community organization. Didn't necessarily have to be a bank. I just got lucky. But yeah, the tight-knit community has been really important. It's really what's kept me here too.
Another thing I'll say as a long-term employee and in my role as a financial advisor, which is my main job at the bank, a few years ago, I started seeing third-generation clients. I took care of grandma and then mom and dad, and now their kids are graduating, and that's kind of where the gray hair shows up on the screen. But it's very satisfying to have, you know, having had taken care of people, multi-generation, a lot of our clients are family, basically. You know, you do a transaction, then you spend 10 minutes talking about what you're doing for Easter, what you do.
Yep.
It's very personal.
Now, you're still fairly new, so I don't know if you've experienced this yet, but has anybody like invited you to kids' birthday parties or graduations or anything like that?
There's a few things that go on. Okay. Some is golf related.
There you go. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. We've talked about it a couple of times, obviously, COVID. It's a part of our history. We're not going to get away from it, but it was a very tough time. And usually when you think small anything, when COVID came around, small businesses had a hard time staying open. There's a lot of struggle. We saw a lot of folding and closure and vanishing of that small business market. And we saw maybe an increase in small business in the online space, but much less in the physical space. I heard about banks having a hard time weathering that storm. I think now we've moved on to where there's fears of potential financial crisis on the horizon, and people are kind of freaking out about that. What has American Bank done, and what is American Bank planning on doing to help continue to weather the storm when it comes to things like this that might scare people?
Well, my memory of COVID and shutting down, which meant every employee worked from home with the exception of 5. Me being, luckily I was the most senior, so I got to open and close the bank every day, which was a mixed blessing. But in any case, I'm fortunate to not have, I didn't have to work from home, so I still had the personal interaction, even though there wasn't customers, it was personal interaction. But yeah, it was a crazy time, and we got through it. We move on, but business as usual, even if it's over the phone, not walking into the bank. So I think we weathered it real good as a small employer.
And I think it speaks to how just dedicated our employees were. I mean, our lending team was working 60-hour weeks just trying to keep up with the PPP loans and things like that. I mean, they could have easily just said, nope, I put my 8 hours in for the day and clocked out. But they knew how much it was affecting customers, the uncertainty that everybody was feeling. And I think that they just wanted to make sure they could kind of ease some of those feelings for those customers and themselves.
In the last few minutes that we have on the show, I want to touch on 2 things. One, I want to ask about hiring. So I hear about longevity. I hear about how long you guys have been there. And so for some person on the outside, they might think, well, man, I'd really like to get into a place like that. But if everybody's been there for that long, they're probably not hiring. They're probably not looking. You know, there's no chance for me. Do you guys have positions that come available? How do people reach out to you if they're interested in anything like that? Give me that info if you could.
I mean, I think our teller customer service team, those are probably the most frequent job openings just because it's any industry, it's like that. Nothing's open right now, but usually when we do get them, they fill up pretty quickly. So.
And are there path people? Like if I come in, I'm working there and I'm a teller and I see what Jamie's doing and I'm like, man, I want to be in that chair someday.
Well, and when I started in 1993, I was fresh out of college, hired as an insurance salesman, which was a mistake. In retrospect, that's not who I am. I had worked for banks over in Columbus, and I walked in the door, hired me as a teller, right? Mm-hmm. Not knowing that, we're going to start this thing called an investment center, and 32 years later, boom, it's a booming business. But absolutely, grow through the times. And again, I've had multiple job titles through the years, but you do what you got to do.
Right, I think we're all very flexible in that. Yes, there are specific pathways, whether you're a teller trying to be a personal banker or you want to be the branch manager, a supervisor. There are pathways for that. But yeah, like Jamie said, we all have held different titles. I was the Walmart branch supervisor at one point while also doing marketing. So we just do what we can to make it work. And I think that also helps us stay so long.
Or if we lose a branch manager because they're moving, we promote from within a lot of times.
Yeah, that's a big...
This position moves up to that, and that advances their career to whatever someday.
So it sounds like you guys encourage people to try and wear multiple hats where they can,
yep.
And to strive for that upper position if they really want it, which is awesome. Finally, I just want to give you guys a moment to kind of give your elevator pitch. Obviously, we don't want to necessarily discourage banking anywhere else, but like Jamie said, and I can't not trust J Money when he says you guys feel like you're the best. So tell everybody who's listening why American Bank? Why is that the option? Why is that the choice that people should be considering first?
I think a lot of it comes down to just the personal touch that we know it's important to customers. And again, I've said it 4 times today. It's the little things that we do for customers that make an endearing relationship. They like it, but you have to do right by the customer. And I think we do that very well as a bank.
I agree. I think the only other thing is we answer to our communities here. We answer to Main Street. That's where we're focused. That's where we reside. Where some of these bigger banks, they're focused more on Wall Street. And we're here, we've got that local Main Street focus.
That's awesome. And ironically, you guys are located on one of the main streets of Beaver Dam.
Yep, it works.
And it definitely works. Jamie Henning, Senior Vice President with American Bank. Alyssa Gilmore, Marketing Manager. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to come on with us today.
Thank you.
And share a lot of really good information. I want to remind everybody again, this has been a paid program. The advice and opinions expressed on the program are solely that of American Bank, not necessarily WBEV or Good Karma Brands.